Hello, hello. I'm Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang at the National Arboretum with
Richard Olsen, the director.
And we are talking about how spring is fully springing now here at the Arboretum. Getting a little chilly though, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. Has a frost risk northwest of town. Look at these low temperatures, maybe mid-40s around downtown, but here north and northwest of town along I-81 and maybe I-70 up in Maryland, we do have this frost advisory, so please keep that in mind. If you have tender vegetation outside, please bring those in. And here's a map that we want to talk about here at the National Arboretum. This is the average last spring frost and freeze. And you can see this frost advisory that we have northwest of town tonight. It's not completely abnormal to see a frost or freeze this time of year. So, Peter, thanks for joining us. Director Olsen, what would happen if we saw a frost here tonight? What would that mean for you all at the Arboretum?
Well, our biggest problem is we just brought out all of our tender tropicals from the greenhouses to display in the herb garden. So they will not like it that cold. But everything else will be pretty well. Do pretty well.
So if we, what's your temperature threshold? Do we need to stay above 40, 45?
Preferably above 45.
Okay.
For the tender tropicals, yep.
Good. And that, I mean, fingers crossed, this is our projected low tonight is right around 45. So we'll hope for the National Arboretum tender herbs, because we are in the herb garden behind us here. And look at that view of the Capitol columns. I'm loving this view. So yes, Mary, frost is possible northwest of town. So please keep that in mind. Here's the advisory area, again, northwest of town. We're talking up near Winchester, even Frederick as well. So keep that in mind. Laura, hello from Bethesda. Thanks for joining. And Liz, yes, indeed, almost May, but frost is possible. Liz is surprised about we're talking about frost.
Well, I'm not sure where Liz is from, but when you get outside the city in north and west, it's you do have a probability into the end of the fourth week of April. So
indeed.
In D.C., we're usually the first week.
Right on. And look at this over in the blue areas where we're thinking this frost advisory tonight. It's not completely abnormal, but even in West Virginia, you can't necessarily plant safely until the May time frame. So do keep that in mind. And Karen, thanks for joining. And Steve, it is not going to snow. And Misty in West Springfield, you should be okay tonight. Here are the overall low temperature projections for tonight. In Springfield, you're generally in the low to mid 40s tonight. So you're okay, Misty. But I did want to highlight this frost advisory for northwest of town. Mary, the weather was great this weekend. I think we'd agree with you. 59.2 here at the National Arboretum. And Dr. Olsen, I think you were telling me off camera that you're excited about this time of year, spring, fully springing.
Yeah, spring. We had a near perfect spring. I've never seen this in 20 years and paying attention to horticulture. So it was cooled up. It was cool, and then we warmed up generally. Sometimes we get those spikes of 80-degree days, which makes us panic.
Yes.
But it was a pretty nice gradual warm up.
I love it. It has been a nice spring, except for allergy sufferers. Here's the tree pollen. I'm sorry to say it has definitely spiked. You were probably feeling it. Even grass pollen is getting going as well. So keep that in mind. I've seen my grass pollen friends suffering with me as a tree sufferer. So I'm sorry to say that's the downside of spring, but it really has been quite a difference over the last few weeks. Go to CWG.news/SpringGreening. And you'll see the article by Ian Livingston of how quickly it's sprung here. Look at this animation. We just really were brown and even had some snow west of town. And then really by mid-April, we really got going here. It was quite a noticeable difference. And this is an interesting map. We're running a little bit behind schedule compared to the last 38 years. But it does happen every now and then. And I want to throw it to Dr. Olsen. Did you notice that it was a little later greening than usual this year?
Yes, actually, that we had a cool winter. We weren't absolutely, saw a lot of cold temperatures, record colds or anything, but we were cool for a long period, which meant all of our native deciduous trees and plants that expect cold in the winter got sufficient chill hours, we call it. They were cold enough. And
for pests?
Well, it's for both
okay.
Insects and plants. But plants measure the chill hours, and they were like, all right, we got plenty of cold this year. We're ready to go. And so now that we're warming up, but it was delayed.
Now, are you happy? This is our average high and low right now. 71.51 today is our average high temperature. So is that when you can put everything out? Are you all in full swing now?
Well, it's the night temperatures that are the big problem. So,
right on.
We're getting down into the 40s, and you've got the tropicals, and you can race if you're a hardcore gardener and you want the first tomato in the neighborhood. But your tomatoes are just going to sit there because when it gets that cold at night and cold soil, that's the other thing is the soil is still cold.
Yep.
That really inhibits the growth.
That makes sense. All right, Claudia has a question about the frost dampening the pollen some. Yes, we have, that is good news if you're northwest of town and are under this frost advisory. The good news is that should cut down on the pollen, especially northwest of town, and an overall cool night does help us a little bit. But it is a little bit breezy tonight, so pollen is still blowing around. And tomorrow is expected to be, let's go for the short-term forecast really quick. Tomorrow is expected to be relatively comfortable, but a little bit below average. Let's call it mid-60s. And for our latest forecast, go to CWG.news/latest or touch on my face, and popping up below, you'll see links to all of the latest from Capital Weather Gang. And look at this week ahead. Tomorrow we get the chilliness out of the way, kind of warm this week, a little damp. Some showers, maybe a thunder shower overnight, late afternoon into the evening hours of almost every night this week. And we're going to also watch once again. My Friday forecast will have maybe some showers and storms featured at the end of this week. It seems to be a pattern that we're facing this spring. But again, a frost advisory is what we're talking about in the near term. Northwest of town tonight. A frost advisory. All right, what are the must-see areas of the Arboretum right now? Great question, Aaron.
Well, we just sort of wrapped up a spectacular flowering cherry season this year in DC, and so we have just wrapped up. The dogwoods are essentially, well, part of the dogwoods are done. The redbuds are wrapping up, but some of the other species of dogwoods are coming in. But the main thing that people come to right now, the Arboretum, is our famous Glendale azalea hillside. So the azaleas are starting to reach peak.
And is that behind the Capitol columns?
That is on the to the west of the Capitol columns on Mount Hamilton here in Washington, D.C. So that's what we call it. So
thank you very much. Liz, should I bother trying to put in new shrubs yet, or are those not affected by the cold evenings? Okay, shrubs. That's a good question.
Oh, you should already have been doing those. We like to plant any of our hardier shrubs in the. Well, we prefer to do it in the fall, and then plant them in as early in the spring as possible. Because again, in the fall you still have warm soil, so the roots are allowed to grow. They're warm enough that they'll grow. And then in the spring you want them early, so that before they leaf out, the roots get to grow and get established before the warm weather hits. So that's why we always say plant trees and shrubs in the fall, because you get 2 seasons of root growth before the warm weather comes back.
Love this detailed Liz, I hope that was a good detailed answer for you. Thank you very much, Howard. Thanks for joining. And Drew, does Friday have the potential to bring some more severe weather to the region? Low confidence, but yes, Drew, it is possible. Storms are possible on Friday, and I just don't want to admit this Friday pattern of storms lately, but it is indeed. Looking at the week ahead really quickly on my graphic here by weather.us, showing some of the confidence levels, the wider temperature swath possibilities here. That means lower confidence as we get toward the end of the week. But indeed, Drew, you're right. Storms possible, and we can't rule out a severe storm as well, because this cold front trying to come through at the end of the week. Look at that. Cooler temperatures for the weekend and maybe some sunshine. But yes, we'll watch those storms for the end of the week on CapitalWeatherGang.com, and follow us on Twitter at Capital Weather. And for severe weather, follow our other account on Twitter at DC Weather Alerts. Hello, Howard. Thank you very much. Liz, you're most welcome. And Mary, dogwoods and azaleas are the best thing around here after the cherry blossoms. Do you agree with that, Dr. Olsen?
Well, I mean, they're iconic. Dogwood, the flowering dogwood, our native flowering dogwood, is pretty common east of the Mississippi. It's the state flowering tree for a number of states. So, yes, they're pretty iconic. And azaleas it's hard to think about gardening in the South and the Mid-Atlantic without azaleas.
Right on. Mary, we agree. I love it. Let's see if I've missed anything else. Feel free. Adam, thanks for joining. Cold soil is the thing. Chris, yes, indeed. Dr. Olsen totally agreed with you earlier on that. And Anna and Catherine, indeed, allergies and frost go together a little bit. We hopefully see some of the frost reducing these pollen levels.
Mulberries are coming in.
Yes, so, I have been feeling them.
Oaks and hickories.
Look at this. Tree pollen is definitely spiking. So that is, if you're a tree pollen sufferer, you are not imagining things. And grass pollen sufferers.
Cool season grasses.
Yep. So what is it, cool season grasses?
Cool season grasses. So the grass sufferers, I'm sorry, you've got multiple seasons here. You have the cool season grasses, which are flowering now. And then later in the season, you'll hit the warm season grasses.
So sorry, but yeah, the peak is coming. So please hang in there. Grass pollen sufferers. Mary, thank you so much. Alyssa, 40s tonight and 80s on Tuesday. Yes, that is spring in DC. Yeah. And let's look at that week ahead really quick. Coolest day of the week tomorrow. Unsettled evening hours, we think, generally has the rain over the coming week. Most raindrops, again, relegated to and confined to the nighttime hours overall. But of course, stay tuned to CapitalWeatherGang.com. A little bit unsettled this week with some showers and storms here and there, especially by Friday. Low confidence, but we'll watch these storms to see if any get strong on Friday. Tom, what's the coldest spring we've ever had? Has it been in the last few years in your experience?
I feel like we've had warmer springs. I think this is probably what I would say the coolest. We don't mind the rain, but enough with the wind already.
I know the wind. Yeah. Let's see. And Tom, that was your question, right? About this is what's interesting, Tom, is that we actually had above average leafing earlier than normal coming up toward Richmond, Virginia this year, and then it paused before it got to DC, and we ended up being several days, if not a week, behind our normal greening for the region. And let me show you this other interesting thing. This is if you go to CWG.news/SpringGreening. Ian Livingston wrote a great piece about how just in a matter of a few weeks we were going from brown to green, and it was just an interesting transition. We were lagging a little bit behind average this year. It was a little unusual at first. We had some chilly air late March into early April, but I think Dr. Olsen was saying it was overall, besides maybe lagging a little bit, it's been a good spring.
Oh, we've enjoyed it. We always fear as gardeners here in the Arboretum, you start having those warm days in February, and then you're like, gosh, I hope we don't go from winter to summer. And so we've had a chance to sort of do a lot of good gardening here before it gets warm. So it's been a great year for us. Other than we got a little dry here for a period. So we could use that rain.
Looks like, see the sunset reflection on the iPad, yes, and a little bit of our backlighting. We have the sun behind us as well. Indeed, Howard, good eyes. And Stephanie, thanks for tuning in. And Alyssa, Chicago snow yesterday and blizzard in Montana. Yep, we have all the weather right now. It's quite the transition season. And let's see what else. Howard asked, does Dr. Olsen have any thoughts on the issues with bee populations in decline in the last few years?
Well, I'm going to pass on that, not being an entomologist and bee expert, but with the USDA and ARS, we have a lot of great bee researchers here in Beltsville, Maryland, and other parts. So you can direct that to USDA ARS, and we can get you some information on that.
Thank you very much. And what time will rain occur on Tuesday? Generally, Aaron, it looks like it will go to the very late afternoon, right near sunset, into the overnight hours. That's generally the theme for this week. Except for Friday, we might have some daytime storms. We'll keep you posted at capitalweathergang.com. But most of the unsettled raindrops that you see here for the weather.us week ahead, it's generally for late afternoon into overnight hours. The raindrops are generally looking like they want to time with our overnight allergies. But yes, Anna, that should help our allergies. Indeed, we need some rain. And no shortage at my house, you swear, Liz. And then I love the Arboretum spring blooming trees, says Stephanie. Especially the camellias. Camellias, thank you.
Yes. So she's talking about the Camellia japonica, as we call them, the Japanese camellias. They're the spring flowering, and they've just wrapped up. But there's also fall blooming camellias, the sasanquas, which were great this year as well. So,
is spring when the most is blooming and visitor rates are the highest for the Arboretum?
Yeah, we don't have the hard numbers, but we've been averaging almost 25,000 visitors a weekend through April, which we've had a 20% increase in visitation in the last 3 years. So
wow.
People have found the National Arboretum.
Excellent. Let's see, Howard. Yes, the weather question. I do think that backdoor cold front comes through Tuesday night. Not guaranteed, but I am seeing we kind of fight warm fronts and cold fronts, some impulses this week, almost overnight. Each night we see a disturbance try and come through and change our air mass just a little bit. Overall warm this week, but a little bit unsettled, especially in the overnight hours, almost each night this week. That is my take on the backdoor cold front on Tuesday. And Howard also asked, do they have a great bonsai collection? I think I've seen it, yeah.
We actually have a world-famous bonsai collection. It's the first public museum dedicated to bonsai in the world, actually. It's about 43 years old now.
Oh, wow. Okay, I need to go see that after this. And Stephanie loves the bonsais. And Alyssa, yes, indeed, more storms are possible on Friday. Can't rule out a strong storm, but it's way ahead. Follow capitalweathergang.com and follow us on Twitter at capitalweather. We'll watch this Friday pattern emerging potentially again for thunderstorms that have a small potential of turning strong to severe. We'll say, yep, it is a tough forecast this week. Generally, Howard, we agree with you. It's unsettled here and there. Timing subject to change. Confidence low after we get through our chilly-ish day tomorrow. It's a sunny day tomorrow. So enjoy that, but our average high temperature is 71 for this time of year. All right, Barbara, Liz, I agree. We don't want to talk about severe weather this far ahead. And a little bit of pollen, there it is. So I'm at the National Arboretum. I'm Cameron Walker for Capital Weather Gang, joined by
Richard Olsen.
and he's the director of the Arboretum, and we're talking about all things spring. Yes, allergy sufferers, you have not exactly loved this start to spring, especially tree pollen sufferers. You have definitely felt the spike, but we're getting into the average last frost and freezes, even north and west of town this time of year. But we do still have a frost advisory northwest of town tonight, so please bring in your sensitive plants. Please keep that in mind. And let's see, 11 out of 17 Fridays have been measurable precip at DCA. Thanks, Howard. Agreed. It's been a weird Friday pattern. Yep. Let's see. How much longer for these azaleas, Elizabeth, here at, I'm going to assume you mean here at the...
Yes, so we peak, let's see, we typically are on the decline by Mother's Day. So, now we're getting near perfect. So, but we're pretty much wrapped up around Mother's Day. So
great. Thanks, Howard, for joining. And David, how is your corpse flower doing? I think that's at the Botanic Gardens.
It is, yeah. And there was an earlier question about the difference. And the corpse flower is at the U.S. Botanic Garden because they have a great conservatory where they can keep something that's native to Borneo or Sumatra warm.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we're, of course, here at the National Arboretum, part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is the executive branch. And we're actually a research arm of the Department of Agriculture. So we conduct research. And Botanic Garden does not have a research function.
Good tip. See, we're learning here today. Agnes, thanks for joining. And Darlene, I'm glad you love the National Arboretum, and she did a great tree emoji. And let's see. We have Nancy with a question about praying mantis, and we can take that offline. Maybe we'll do some research on exactly the praying mantis eggs and what to do with them at this time of year. Just leave them. Great. Thank you very much, Dr.
Unless
Olsen.
they bought them. But sorry, that's another, sorry.
No, great. How many koi are in the pond, Stephanie? We did not count, but
0 koi. Sorry, we have water in the pond now. We are doing the last details on making sure the pumps and everything work, but we hope to have koi before June. So. Awesome. Nancy, glad you love the Arboretum. We are indeed talking with Director Olsen here at the Arboretum how spring has been springing. We are definitely green just in a matter of a few weeks. Look at this animation. Go to CWG.news/SpringGreening of how quickly we transitioned to spring this year. It was brown with the chilly air late March into early April. We definitely took our time. We were a few days behind our average first greening of our tree canopy this year. We were a little bit behind, but we have caught up. It is a good spring here. Our average high now, 71. Average low is 51. But here's tomorrow, a little below average. Here's the weather, saying we'll give you some sunshine on Monday, but it's going to be a little below average. So with the breezes dying down, it should be relatively enjoyable tomorrow. And again, looking at the week ahead, some unsettled conditions. Mainly raindrops stick to overnight hours, but it's a tough forecast at times. Please stay tuned to CapitalWeatherGang.com and follow us on Twitter at CapitalWeather. And again, I want to make sure everyone with plants that are a little susceptible to frost northwest of town, here's the frost advisory. Please bring in that sensitive vegetation. And we were talking with Dr. Olsen here, the director of the Arboretum. I think your herbs are going to be safe tonight. Are you too worried if the low is maybe 45 degrees? No, I live north of town in Beltsville, so the city always is a little bit warmer. I don't know if it's a benefit, but there is the urban heat island effect, and so we tend to not have to worry about it this time of year.
We're going to do a quick temperature check in just a second, but here are the low temperatures forecast for tonight, generally mid-40s around the Beltway and northwest of town where that frost advisory is in effect. Winchester, Hagerstown, you could see some frost even with low temperatures in the mid-30s, so do bring in your sensitive vegetation northwest of town. You're okay around the Beltway where it's still 57 degrees here at the National Arboretum. We'll go in just a couple minutes. Let's see if there are any last questions. Stephanie, Dr. Olsen and I, the director of the Arboretum, I think we agree, treasure in the city, right?
Definitely, yep, absolutely.
Is there a concession stand or any food service for visitors at the Arboretum, Tom?
We rely on food trucks typically,
nice.
And to follow our peak visitation. So,
thank you. Drew, May Outlook from Capital Weather Gang coming, I think, later this week. We have a couple more days. We're working on that for you, so please stay tuned. And Liz, it's hard to keep my lawn in order with all this rain. The flowers blooming hopefully detract from some of the grass issues. Are you having grass growing issues here?
Well, because the temperature's been a little suppressed, it hasn't been too bad. But yeah, it is. They're definitely peaking up. The cool season grasses are enjoying it.
Right on. Whatever day it rains is the day I'm going to power wash the deck. That's hilarious, Peg. Kevin, thanks so much for watching and joining. If you have any last couple questions for Director Dr. Olsen here, we are not brothers, Tam, but we have good taste in glasses.
Yes,
that's
yes.
what we are. So that's a great question, Tam. Hilarious. So let's go really quick. One last round. Short-term forecast, cool nights tonight, around mid-40s for downtown. But the frost advisory, we have maybe some frost potential northwest of town. That's, again, a frost advisory well northwest of town. Bring in your sensitive vegetation. Not abnormal to see a frost this time of year northwest of town. As you can see, the average last spring freeze, late April, early May, northwest of town. So I hope no one got ahead of themselves. Pollen, yep, it is bothering us. If you're a tree pollen sufferer, allergy sufferer, you have definitely felt it, and not welcoming spring either if you are a grass pollen sufferer as well. But gardeners have loved this fairly rapid greening in the last several weeks around the district, around the DMV region. Look at this animation. Go to CWG.news/SpringGreening for more. It is just a great thing. We were initially a little bit behind for the average time of year we normally see our green canopy develop. We were a few days behind here, but we're here now in middle of spring. 71 for an average high, 51 for an average low. And tomorrow, again, our chilliest day of the week, mid-60s, with a little bit of volatility this week. So stay tuned. Some low confidence on exactly when we see some raindrops, maybe storms by the end of the week. But overall warm. We're on capitalweathergang.com, and follow us on Twitter at Capital Weather. Touching on my face, popping up below is a bunch of links as well, including CWG.news/latest for latest forecast. And Rob, no worries for asking again, but any frost in Fairfax? Unlikely. Unlikely. I will say that temperatures around 40 generally say no frost in my mind. And the other good news is that the frost advisory is northwest of town. But if you have something like the director of the Arboretum here, Dr. Olsen, was talking about his herbs don't really like temperatures below, what, 45?
45, 40, yep.
So bring in maybe some of those sensitive herbs. Allergies and moving to Virginia, Peg. Yes, indeed, it is true. We have a very thick deciduous forest around here that spews out bunches of pollen, right?
Yes, and you know, depending on where you came from, we may have different species than you're used to, and you may have just gotten over, you've been exposed too much. So
Right on.
Now you're feeling it.
Rob, most welcome. Thank you for tuning in. And too early to plant tomatoes? I think we said no?
No, you can plant them, but they're not going to look like they do much until the soil really warms up and the night temperatures stop dipping into the 40s. So
there you have it, Carrie. From experts, Dr. Olsen, thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Visit the National Arboretum anytime. Look at this great view of the Capitol columns behind us. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And if you have any other questions, I'll try and check offline after this. Have a great start to your week and take care. Bye for now.
Bye.